This is a key part of Smith's overall argument, but it isn't the only argument. He has an argument based on virtues. He writes The Wealth of Nations 17 years after A Theory of the Moral Sentiments, and those concerns are still very much in his mind. A society that has its good maximized is going to have to be one with virtuous people in it. Virtue and happiness go hand in hand. And so he is not going to say, look, yes, we do this, but we all become selfish, egoistic monsters. No, that's not the point at all. In fact, he says it's not only going to improve our situation to act prudentially in this way, it's going to improve us as well. We are going to become better people. It's going to develop virtues in us. Now, why is that true? Well, in order for me to prosper in a free enterprise system, I have to produce things that other people want. So I have to pay attention to the wants and needs of other people. I can't actually remain solely selfish, seeking to promote my own self-interest and not caring about others. I need to care about what other people want and need. Suppose I decide to become a brewer. It's not enough for me to think what kind of beers I like. I have to think about what kinds of beer other people like and what they're willing to pay for it. So I have to think about the competition and what they're producing, what I can do that's better or less expensive. I need to think about what kinds of beer people actually want. So the result of all that is that I'm going to be thinking about what other people want and need. Consequently, I can't be solely selfish and thrive in a free enterprise system. I have to be concerned with other people's needs and wants. After all, I want to be able to sell my service or my product. And that means I need to think about who's willing to buy what, who is willing to actually engage my services or to buy my product. What are they looking for? What do they want? What do they need? I have to be other regarding in my thinking and in my concerns in order to provide people what they want and need. So actually, selfishness is not something that's going to come out of all this. Quite the opposite. I may be pursuing my own self-interest in economic terms, but it's going to be promoting other regarding virtues in me. Virtues of concern for others, of caring for others. It will also encourage virtues in me like productivity, like a commitment to hard work, like a commitment to efficiency, effectiveness. I'm going to be trying to become competent, in fact, trying to excel in what I do. So a free enterprise system is going to be one that promotes excellence, excellence of character, as well as excellence in brewing, in baking, in carpentry, in plumbing, in a wide variety of activities. I am going to have to excel if I'm going to do as well as I can for myself. And what does it mean to excel in all these activities? To excel at producing value for other people. So I am going to excel myself. I'm going to thrive myself in such a system by developing excellences that correspond to other people's wants and needs. I am going to have to excel at producing good for the entire community. It's also, of course, going to encourage me to develop the things that will help me to succeed in business. It will encourage me to become creative, to become innovative. It will encourage me not only to be hardworking and productive, but to be determined, to be persistent, to work hard, yes, but to keep at it, to endure difficulties, because after all, anybody learning a trade, learning a skill, gaining an education has to actually put up with a lot of menial work, a lot of learning that isn't that fun in order to become excellent. You might say the difference between the amateur who never really excels and the person who's actually capable of becoming a professional is partly that the professional works on the boring parts. The professional piano player, for example, sits there and does lots of dull left-hand and right-hand exercises. They play through the book of etudes in a way that the amateur says, oh, this is kind of boring, I'll skip to the fun parts. So the same is true in all sorts of other professions. To really excel at plumbing, to excel at motorcycle repair, to excel at almost anything, you have to do not only the intriguing and fun parts, you have to do kind of the tedious parts. And you'll develop a willingness to be determined, to persist, to endure, and to work hard in order to attain that level of excellence. Well, so far we've talked about the positive virtues that it will encourage, but it's also going to discourage certain vices. It is going to discourage corruption. It's going to discourage people from trying to succeed by just transferring risk on other people. Now, why will it do that? Basically, because people in a free enterprise system have skin in the game. They have something to lose. If I open up a brewery, I invest lots of time and money and effort, and typically I will have to borrow money to do this. I establish this, I set up my tanks, I brew my beer, and now it turns out I do a lousy job. Nobody wants my beer. I stand to lose a lot. The same thing is true if I spend years as an apprentice training to become a carpenter or an architect or whatever it is, or I spend years in school trying to become an accountant or an attorney or whatever, and then I turn out to be no good at it and I do a bad job, or worse yet, I become corrupt and I actually try to cheat. Look, I have a lot to lose. And so the fact is that that kind of activity is going to be discouraged in such a system. Partly, we're going to have a legal system that is going to try to prevent people from being corrupt, from defrauding others, from deceiving others, and so on. But we're also going to have a system that makes people risk their own time, their own money, their own capital, in order to accomplish the ends they seek. And if it doesn't work out, they're the ones who lose. Now, that makes them careful, and that means they're going to be cautious and invest only when they think the returns are likely to be worth it. When will they be worth it? When they actually do produce enough good for the community. The sort of person who takes for themselves without producing good for the community, well, look, they try to put themselves in a position where they personally have nothing to lose. They transfer the risks to other people. But in a pure free enterprise system, they're not going to be able to do that. Or at least they won't be able to do it for very long. The investors who invest in this losing project will say, well, don't trust that person. That person is not competent to conduct such an enterprise. What happens in a lot of systems that start out maybe as free enterprise systems is that people find ways of transferring those risks. They do it typically by using governments, by relying on other people bailing them out. And indeed, if you look at people in government service, you often see people who fail upwards, who fail at almost everything they do. They try to manage this, it's a disaster. But still, that disastrous stint as Assistant Secretary of State leads to, in the next administration, them being appointed as Secretary of State. And then, after being an abysmal Secretary of State, they run for president, and so on. And so these kinds of things happen all the time in bureaucratic structures like those of government. But in a pure free enterprise system, there is a penalty for failure. It's pretty hard to fail upwards because, in fact, people suffer. You suffer, other people suffer when you fail. And so you can't avoid the consequences of your bad decisions in the way that you can in a different kind of system. So, Smith is not only saying that the pursuit of your own self-interest in a free enterprise system maximizes the good of the community. It also makes you a better person, and it prevents you from acquiring certain vices that it's all too easy to acquire in alternative systems.